President Trump with an update on Operation Epic Fury aboard Air Force One last night, saying the U.S. has wiped out Iran's air defenses. Watch.
As far as I'm concerned, we've essentially defeated Iran. I guess they can have a little bit of fight back, but not much. Not much. We've taken out their air forces, we've taken out their navy, we've taken out their air defense, and no air defense whatsoever. We've taken out their leadership times 2, 4, 3. Might be where you can find out soon.
Are you ready to officially declare victory?
I think that we've done damage to them right now. If we left right now, it would take them 10 years and more to rebuild. But I'm still not declaring it over. Our military is incredible. The job they've done is just incredible.
This after the U.S. carried out a bombing raid on Iran's Karg Island over the weekend. 90% of Iran's oil is produced and exported from Karg Island. The State Department announced a $10 million reward for information on Iran's new supreme leader, meanwhile, and other IRGC members. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said that the new leader of Iran was injured in the recent strikes and is likely disfigured. He, of course, the son of the former Ayatollah Khomeini. Joining me now is the senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. Senator, it's great to see you. Welcome back.
Yeah, great to have you back.
And I want to get your thoughts on where this war stands and how you see things, because I know that you and your colleagues will soon be assessing an ask from the Pentagon for a defense supplemental. $50 billion is what I have reported, because obviously in the middle of this war, to take out Iran's military infrastructure will mean a replenishment of our munitions. How will you vote on that?
Oh, I would vote 100%. And I would dare any of my colleagues to vote against providing our military the kinds of necessary munitions, the things that they need. And I largely agree with what the president said, that Iran has essentially been defeated. And why don't the Western medias just demand that Iran provide proof of life of the Ayatollah? Because I think the Iranians are doing kind of like a weekend at Ayatollahs, and they're trying to pretend this guy is functional or even alive at this point. And I think we just call them out and realize that they're a nation that's been effectively defeated, and they don't have any leadership. They're unwilling to even provide proof to refute that. So overall, I think it's entirely appropriate to remind the world that if you want their oil, you need to help us to reopen the straits.
Yeah, I mean, and you've talked about it, that, the Iranians have been screaming death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. But the issue on oil prices, the market reaction is oftentimes front and center. Is there anything else you'd like to see done in terms of loosening up the Strait of Hormuz right now? The president's calling on nations to join this fight. Your reaction?
Yeah, it's entirely appropriate to ask. I mean, if the world wants oil and they want that, then it's entirely appropriate for them to just help. I mean, it's unsurprising that the Iranians would turn to the Chinese, and it seems without a doubt that the Chinese and the Russians are helping and conspire Iran to kill Americans and Israelis as well, too. So hold them accountable and make them part of the solution, because essentially, if Iran doesn't have any military capables left other than just a random kind of a drone here or there trying to produce chaos and have that get amplified and platformed in like the New York Times and whatever to make it seem that the world's on fire, and that's just not there. And now every single Democrat wanted this. We'd make sure that Iran could never acquire a nuclear bomb. Now that's happening. And now, our leadership identified Iran as a top concern, international concerns, and now that's been effectively neutralized at this point. Yes, there's chaos, without a doubt. And now the rest of the world is accountable if they want to bring more peace to the region and to get their oil back.
Yeah, it's great points all around. And, just about a week ago, all Democrats would not vote, except yourself, would not admit that the Iranians have been the leading state sponsor of terrorism. Now, we know that China has been complicit in all of this. We've been reporting this for years, that China has been assisting Tehran. So Isn't it interesting that the president has this planned trip at the end of March to go to Xi Jinping and meet with him in Beijing? Do you think the president should reschedule or delay that trip?
Well, I mean, that's really his prerogative, but it seems undeniable. The Iranians are desperate, and of course they're turning to their ally in China. And China, of course, wants to create more chaos and help keep them on the ropes any longer. You know, they want their oil, and it's entirely appropriate. You know, Iran has effectively been neutralized. This is the last sticking point, and now everyone should be accountable to reopen it.
Now, we are in the middle of a war. We've got chaos as a result of the Department of Homeland Security being shut down now for 30 days, Senator. Democrats are still rejecting the GOP efforts to fund the department as the funding lapse reaches day 31 today. Even despite terrorism investigations. I mean, police are investigating at least 3 terrorist attacks on American soil. And as you know, on Thursday, a naturalized citizen, U.S. citizen who was naturalized from Lebanon, rammed a car packed with explosives into a Michigan synagogue. Israeli forces said that the suspect's brother is a member of Hezbollah. Writing on X, he was responsible for managing weapons operations within a specialized branch of the Badr unit. The unit is responsible for launching hundreds of rockets toward Israeli civilians throughout the war. Your reaction to this person who is the brother of a Hezbollah member, and you still cannot get your colleagues to vote to fund and open the Department of Homeland Security?
I can. Well, I mean, I have a reason why, but I do believe that why can't we just agree that, you know, remind everybody that individual that, you know, looked to kill 150 toddlers, and now the New York Times and other media just made that, well, he lost families in an airstrike. Yeah, they did. And that's a commander in Hezbollah, you know, a terrorist group, and they were held accountable. And I absolutely support those kinds of efforts too. Why, you know, do we have the DS shut down right now? And there's more and more kinds of attacks because, you know, it's because they just are afraid to reopen it, because we all know that all of this shutdown's not going to have any impact on ICE or force any kinds of reforms. It can just make us more secure. And I'm going to be heading to the airport later today, and I'm going to get to ask the TSA agents at the airport, hey, what's it like not getting paid? Because people can't just agree to just pay everyone and just reopen it and find a way forward to make some reforms on ICE, which I do believe they will have one. Now we have a new Senator Mullen coming in, and perhaps I might be one of the only Democrats to vote for him because I want to work with him, and I've had a great conversation with him. You know, I am on the different side, whether it's about taking out Iran and now reopening DS to make America more secure and pay all of these government workers.
And I know that requires real courage, Senator. Are you getting sidelined by your colleagues because you choose practical, common sense alternatives?
No, the real true courage is with the American service members in the Middle East and in the IDF, and that's true courage. I mean, for me, this is just trying to put the country over what the party base demands. So I'm proud of what our military has achieved right now, and the IDF. And I would remind everybody, every single Democrat at some point all wanted these things, and now the Trump administration, you know, was willing to do something to make that possible.
So not only have 50,000 TSA workers missed their first paycheck on Friday, but I understand 300 people have actually quit. I spoke with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy yesterday. Here's what he said. Watch this.
TSA agents have missed a partial payment. They just missed a full payment. These are men and women who don't make a lot of money. And so some of them are making choices to go, you know, whether they're driving Uber or, you know, waiting tables, they have to put food on their family's table. And in these places where this is happening, you're seeing really long lines, whether they're 1 hour, 3 to 4 hour lines at airports. And I think if you stand in that line, it's one thing, Maria, if you're by yourself, but if you're with some little kids or any kids for 3 or 4 hours, it's horrible. And so you can thank a Democrat who cares more about making sure that the 15 million people that they let into this country under Joe Biden, that we don't have ICE that can actually look across the country, find those radical elements who've come into the country without, by the way, without being vetted, find them and deport them. This is what these Democrats want. And so my hope is that Democrats will come to their senses, open up DHS, and then have a negotiation, have a conversation. But in the process, don't hold America hostage to just get what you want.
So, Senator, what are the long-term implications of 300 people quitting because they can't continue this way without getting paid?
Yeah, well, you know, if I encounter a TSA agent that's thrilled they're not getting paid, I'm going to reach out to you and get back on your show to remind I found one. But otherwise, everyone agrees we should pay people for the work to keep our flying system more secure and now reopen this. Just let's acknowledge it. This is the wrong thing. It was always the wrong thing to shut our government down. Now I was the only Democrat that maintains that. It's going to continue to deteriorate at our airports and security all around our nation as well. That's never going to produce the kinds of reforms for ICE and make those kind of changes, because we all agree it was never going to be about that. It was all about what parts of my base would demand.
Now, you are comfortable with what has taken place in terms of the Iran war. You have broken ranks with your colleagues. And we spoke with Jared Isaacman on Friday, of course, the head of NASA. I want to get your take on the assets that we have, particularly in space, given your role on Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee. Watch this. Here's what Jared Isaacman told me on Friday.
The assets we have in space, the satellites that are there for observation, for communication. I mean, these are the capabilities that are identifying the rocket launches, that are communicating to our forces and give America an extreme edge in this conflict.
I think it's really fascinating that we're using all of these assets in different places to ensure that we've got all hands on deck for this war. How long are you expecting this to go, Senator?
I really don't know. I don't have any specific kind of insights, but what I do think it's entirely appropriate to take out and neutralize Iran, and I think that's largely happened. And I think it's also entirely appropriate to bring the other countries to reopen the straits and just acknowledge that if you want more peace and you want more stability and more oil, they need to be part of that solution now, too. And I was happy to vote for Mr. Isaacson. I think, I thought he was a great new leader of NASA. That's part of being a Democrat. And I take no pleasure in constantly voting against the majority of my caucus. But for me, I'm going to follow truths that are all embedded in country over party and what the base demands.
So I want to get your take about the SAVE Act, because this is another issue where you told me weeks ago, look, you are very comfortable and you think it's a good idea to have people show ID to vote. But House Republicans are giving GOP senators now an ultimatum on this Save America Act. They say they will block any legislation sent to them unless the majority leader, John Thune, brings the bill to the floor for a debate and for a vote. Senator, you just told the country recently that you cannot vote for the House-passed Save America Act in its current state. So a couple of weeks ago, you were okay with it. What changed?
Nothing changed. I've always said that I wasn't going to vote for SAVE Act. It's needlessly complicated, and now that's not. But what I have said, it's not Jim Crow and it's not extreme things. But mail-in voting is absolutely secure. Some of the best examples in the country are red states like Florida and Ohio. And I would remind people watching, Florida just passed the essential version of Save America, but they also said mail-in voting is absolutely secure, and that's going to be part of us going forward. What I've consistently said, that is not an unreasonable thing to provide basic ID to vote. 83% of Americans are okay with that, including 71% of Democrats are. just what happened in Wisconsin less than a year ago. They put it in the Constitution to provide ID to vote, and that passed by 2-1 nearly. So that's not outrageous. And that's not what SAVE Act is. So if the Republicans have a real conversation, not one single Republican have ever reached out to me to get my input, anything. So that's part of a normal conversation. And now we are in the situation is another truth. The Democrats, we love the filibuster, but it wasn't that long ago that we all wanted to remove the filibuster. So, I will be the first person to admit that the filibuster is an important part of the Senate, and we can't ever allow the Senate to become a smaller version of a majority version of the House.
So let me just get this clear. You say it's not unreasonable to have ID to vote, to show citizenship to vote, but you still will not vote for the Save America Act in its current form.
That is not what Save America is. And they've had no impact, no input from Democrats.
Right.
So
no one
make
has
that
contacted
conversation.
You. Yeah, I mean, look, the president did add things, right? He wanted the no transgender surgery, no boys and girls sports. Is that the difference, or what specifically is bothering you about the current Save America Act in its current form, sir?
No, it is just not workable where it currently is. That's not a serious outreach from the Republicans to try to find something they could vote for it. And now there's not any Democrat votes in Congress. So if they want to pass something to make it more secure or to provide ID, that's part of this conversation.
Okay, so you would
and I'm a Democrat that's open, and I'm not going to call showing ID is mass voter suppressing, or that's Jim Crow. Showing basic ID, I'm not going to tell 83% of Americans they're unreasonable or they're crazy or they're trying to suppress America's voting. That's not the case.
This is a very important conversation, and you're making very important points in terms of, this is not what the extreme left Democrats are trying to paint it as. It's not Jim Crow. It's very reasonable to show ID. When you say a simple ID, we know that, that they've been giving out driver's licenses like it's candy in places like Washington. So are you suggesting that a driver's ID, a driver's license, or are you suggesting citizenship to vote is reasonable?
Well, I don't know if they're handing out driver license like candy, but certainly that's not occurring in Pennsylvania. But what I do know that a lot of the statements that mode-in voting is unsecure, that's just categorically not true. And I would remind people that the Republicans in my state, when I was lieutenant governor, that was their idea. They demanded to have mode-in voting. And it wasn't that long ago they were pushing Republicans to use voting at mail, and that was a secure way to vote. So just have an honest conversation, and that's part I'd happy to be involved in that. But where it's at now, I will remind people that it's not a radical idea for Americans to provide ID, but that's not what Save America is right now, and they're attaching all of these other things that is a distraction to the core.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I just want to be clear right now, about 19 U.S. states plus Washington, D.C., allow undocumented immigrants to obtain some type of driver's license or driving privilege card. In the majority of states, around 31, people without legal immigration status cannot get a license at all, but millions have been issued over the past decade in states that permit them. And that includes 19 states plus Washington allow undocumented immigrants to obtain some type of driver's license. That is why Republicans say a driver's license is not adequate to show to vote. And they want to ensure that you have proof of citizenship to vote. Do you agree? Proof of citizenship is what is needed to vote, should be needed to vote.
I'm saying that you have to produce real ID or a secure state ID. That's part of a process, and that's up to the other kinds of states. So that's what's entirely appropriate. Make it more like what happened with Wisconsin. That was a constitutional vote. Do we want to add it to our Constitution to produce ID? And they did that. And that wasn't controversial to people in Wisconsin. So that's making it more simple, saying produce ID. That's part of this conversation. And I don't use the kind of extreme rhetoric and describe it as Jim Crow or some kind of conspiracy to enfranchise America.
No, I understand that, and I appreciate that. I just wanted to mention this because some of your colleagues, I spoke with Jared Moskowitz, for example. He came on the show. He goes, I'll vote for the SAVE Act as long as it's a driver's license. I had to point out that in California, over 1 million licenses were issued to undocumented immigrants since the AB 60 law took effect in 2015. And in New York, hundreds of thousands issued since 2019 law allowed them. And in New Jersey, tens of thousands issued the first years after the 2021 law. And in Minnesota, roughly 25,000 non-citizens were licensed after a 2023 expansion. So I just want to make sure to make that clarification because this is what the Republicans will say. What you say is the fact that no one has reached out to you to get your support. That's absolutely crazy. What specifically do you want to tell Republicans about this SAVE Act to get your support?
I'm saying that you have made no one reached out to have more of a conversation to find that it's turning it into more theatrical kinds of thing. So if you want to have a real honest conversation, sure, absolutely. Yeah. But overall, I refuse to engage in the extreme kind of rhetoric on either side. Yeah. Try to be, the voice of common sense and not use the kind of extreme rhetoric that parts of my party are using to describe making voting more secure and producing ID.
Do you believe a talking filibuster will help or hurt? How long can a talking filibuster go? And do you expect that we will have a talking filibuster?
I have no idea what's coming, but it's probably not going to be productive. And I just wish we could just get behind, our military and what's happening in Iran. And I do think we could finally just reopen DHS and have more kinds of conversations. That's the essence of democracy and being in the United States Senate. So that's what I'm here for, and that's what I'm about to get on my plane to just be part of that conversation. And I try to be, and I promise to be a reasonable voice through that.
And you certainly are, and I appreciate that. Senator, final question here. Because of this issue around oil and gas, you are from an energy state, the state of Pennsylvania, and I want to get your take on what else can be done to rein in prices. Is it all about the Strait of Hormuz? Is there anything else you'd like to see done in terms of making things more affordable?
I've always maintained that energy security is national security, and it reminds us, all of us now, that we need to make more and more and produce more kinds of energy, regardless of where it comes from, to make our nation more immune to these kinds of things. Absolutely, there's going to be fluctuations in oil prices, as you've seen, and that's why we need the rest of the world to have these nations to join us, because unless you stand with Iran, that would identify us effectively as enemies or people that want the worst for Americans and Israelis.
Senator, I want to thank you so much for your common sense approach. I know that our audience so appreciates your leadership. We'll be watching what you find out when you speak with TSA agents. Thanks so much for going there to hear it from them directly. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me on.
We'll see you soon. Senator John Fetterman this morning. We'll be right back.